Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Eigenbros. This is your boy Juan Terence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, today we're actually talking about smartphone technology. Man, this is a doozy. This was a doozy because it sort of blew my mind how much physics goes into that. And you'd be surprised if you haven't really given a lot of thought. The accumulation of knowledge necessary to make this piece of technology.
It's pretty impressive.
On me, but yeah, it's So what would you say that we kind of like? I guess maybe the sequence that we kind of followed. I'm trying to remember.
So I know we started out with, I guess, kind of the quantum parts of the phone.
Yeah.
So we went into like the whole transistor, the semi-metal, metal oxide semiconductor.
Mm-hmm.
We went into, kind of the processor and the memory a little bit into the first part.
Yeah, and then the screen. How did that work?
Yep. With the battery along with that
stuff. Yeah.
And then what else? The networking, how the wireless signal actually is transmitted.
Yeah.
And then we kind of ended off a little bit with the memory a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, so and I guess most importantly, we kind of opened with a sort of PSA about smartphones, just,
for the youngsters.
Be careful and just, well, it was mostly just, these phones are, and how would you say? They're made in such a way where they constantly pull your attention and maybe take some time, relax, breathe.
Meditate.
Live in the moment,
little yoga.
Yeah. So don't. If you disagree with my message, just comment "Okay, boomer." Just say something.
Oh God, we have a whole string of okay boomers.
Okay, boomers. No, just leave something snarky in the comments. And but if you actually enjoyed the discussion, stay till the end, and we have a question for you folks.
Indeed, and guys, just make sure once again to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Make sure you check out the Twitter at Eigenbros. Check out our website, eigenbros.com. Also, make sure to check out our TikTok, which is Eigenbros2. I fucked up the first name with Eigenbros. But
he got locked out.
Yeah. And then also check out the Instagram, which is Eigenbros there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then also, of course, if you're an audio listener, tune in. Spotify, Apple, Google Play, all that good stuff. Yeah. And we will see you guys in a bit.
3, 2, 1. We're live, folks.
Another episode.
Brand new episode of Eigenbros. This week, as the introduction would have said, we're talking about smartphones.
Indeed.
The advent of such a technology, good or bad?
You sound like a PBS episode.
Yeah, this is what is it? The McLaughlin Group, or what is it called?
I don't know.
Have you ever seen those shows with the CBS or one of those channels where they would just have random discussion groups of
I probably have
people?
when I was a kid, but it's been so long.
You know what
man.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah.
I always liked the one on Adult Swim. What was it called? Like The More You Know or something. Or,
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's like this fake thing where they talk about, they describe certain things, and it's really like it tries to do the infomercial, or not the infomercial, but the PBS thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like Arsenio. If you ever watched Arsenio Hall, did you watch Arsenio Hall?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same format. Where they. Like it's like Oprah's show. Like people just they bring on people to talk about certain things.
I see.
So in this case, we're talking about smartphones. We're going to try to emulate that today.
Indeed.
And you know what? Let me sound off on smartphones before we get into like the technology. I think smartphones are a very dangerous, mentally dangerous kind of technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mean in what sense?
I think you and I, for the younger generation, be careful with smartphones. I sound like an old person. I feel like
we need to put up a PSA now here in a second.
They're like, okay, boomer, shut up.
Yeah.
No, but it's they make the phones to be dope. I think people call them like dopamine factories, but yeah, you get they make them so that you're addicted to them. You maximize your screen time.
Well, that's not. I wouldn't say that's the phone itself. Probably the software.
The OS. Yeah.
But not the OS, but the software that comes to you, because that's like companies that want you to play games. When you're buying jewels for like $1,000, and and companies that want like little mini games like on the internet, and the social media, of course. Like those are the ones that want you to be addicted in a sense.
Yeah. So in a sense, the technology isn't necessarily the problem, but it's definitely the software. You have to be careful because that can hijack your brain.
Yeah.
to want to reach for your phone every time and want to yeah.
Does that happen with you?
Oh yeah, 100% happens.
Okay.
Especially now that I'm studying.
Yeah.
Like I'm studying and I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me take a little break. Let me just see what's going on in my news feed.
I've been so good at avoiding that until late because just with the whole business that we're doing now, I feel like I'm always on social media now. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to stay on top of trending things and you have to ride the man, it's rough. It can kind of play with you sometimes don't even know what happened to time.
Right.
Because you're just like, wow. It's already was on my phone for, an hour or two just dicking around.
Right.
Scrolling,
literally just scrolling
YouTube videos, going on Reddit or something, and then just rinse and repeat, baby. That's
right. Exactly, man.
I've had pits. I've fallen into, and I'm like, this is not good.
Yeah.
This is not.
And
good.
the other bad thing about it I've noticed is like I'm not even really like learning information in any depth. It's like I'm just scrolling and browsing a bunch of like junk info. It's like you're not going into depth on anything.
No.
So at least the good thing I kind of save myself with, I feel like I'm putting out content.
Yeah.
So when I'm putting out content, I feel slightly better about it, but still you can get sucked in.
So be careful. That's all I'm going to say. This is my PSA before the real meat and potatoes of this discussion, because the technology is amazing. I'm not one of these people that say, we should get rid of the technology. I think you need to find a balance. Like with using the technology as it's needed and not necessarily have the technology use you or that kind of way.
Right. You need to have control over it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of funny actually. So what can we even begin? Because like a lot of people say that, I mean, modern technology is built on the back of quantum mechanics.
Right. So
like,
true.
Like for them, like everything, like computer chips and stuff. But on a different level than say something like a quantum computer, right? Like
yes.
Discernibly, right? Like
yeah, because you're saying like in difference of like maybe the amount of quantumness.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair because a quantum computer is like fully quantum, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a smartphone is pretty damn quantum.
Yeah, it uses,
in many ways, but like the architecture of like how it computes things isn't quantum necessarily.
Right.
It's kind of like, it's like on that borderline of quantum and classical. I guess you could call it almost like semi-classical, but then that's not accurate. I wouldn't say, maybe I should take that back, not semi-classical, because it does have quantum phenomenon. Like things are quantum in there.
Yeah. It definitely exploits quantum properties of like electrons. To reach certain things,
like
well, you can use spin.
I gotta think now.
You can use
I don't
spin.
fuck up.
Yeah, you can use spin and stuff, but like the modern tech is just kind of using like band calculation stuff, right? Like you can use like like most chips use silicon, right? And like they use the basically the knowledge we've accumulated with like band theory, how electron bands, how you can manipulate electron bands. Of a certain material, in this case silicon, and that
and I guess maybe you should explain
mechanics.
Electron bands. Mm-hmm. Should I give it definition?
Sure, yeah.
So I guess electron band would be like the so there's metals, there's non-metals, and then there's semiconductors, you can say. And of course a metal is a conductor. I guess I should have said there's a non-conductor, there's conductors, and then there's semiconductors.
Yeah.
And there's these things called I guess you could call the band structure of electrons, and electrons are basically what what move around in semiconductors to actually give you electricity, which I'm sure many people already know here.
Yeah.
But you can tune those bands, which is like the ability for the electrons to be free or moving within that material, depending on like how you dope a material, which is like adding different kinds of metals into it, or maybe not even metals necessarily. You can just tune these properties by changing the material type.
Yeah. So the whole idea between, I mean, the band structure stuff is it can get kind of complicated because it's super abstract.
It can get definitely real complicated.
It's not really, and it's not in real, like it doesn't exist in real space. It exists in this sort of abstract sort of momentum space where we like to put electrons in.
Yeah.
And
even that shit for me is like, I'd have to like brush up on that to remember what the hell it's even talking about.
Yeah, because you have to, you have to sort of, kind of look at, there's a lot to build on.
Yeah.
So it's, we'll just say that it lives in this momentum space or this K space, as physicists like to call, and the electrons travel through, they sort of occupy these bands, so to say, or sort of levels. We'll just say levels.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the type of material, like Terence is saying, you have a metal, a semiconductor, and a conductor. A conductor is metallic, and that the bands are above what's called the Fermi level.
Okay.
Yeah. If and that level determines like basically if the electrons are free to move around above this, and when they reach sort of this conductive state, and that's where most metals are, and above that level, and they're crossing the conduction band, as people would like to say. So
right, and all this falls into the realm of condensed matter physics, was just what me and Juan do, basically. Well, more so you, not me so much. I'm more entrepreneur now, but this was what I was studying at the time in graduate school. But so I mean,
it's just it can get very complicated.
Yeah, long story short, like there's a whole science behind just the changing the materials and then seeing how the electrons can flow in those materials. Yeah,
so that's kind of what kind of led us onto this whole thing. Like the biggest thing being the PN junction, right? Did you touch into that?
I did not. Okay. I did not, but I was more than happy to. Let's keep it flowing.
Okay, yeah. Well, we can. This is sort of the foundation of it, I think. A lot of semiconductors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just the PN junction is, you have basically a positive material, or what would you call it? Yeah, a positive.
Yeah. So I guess with the PN junction, Juan's talking about with the PN junction. This is kind of one of the big parts of transistors. Mm-hmm. So the transistor, of course, was invented. What was it? Do you remember the year it was invented?
Late 1980, 1970 something?
No, before that.
Really?
Wasn't it? Yeah, because the 70s they had TVs and stuff. So you have to have
but semiconductors.
You had to have
semiconductors. I think
transistor. Oh. So the transistor existed before the 70s for sure. Yeah. But whatever year it was, it was in a black and white year. Whatever that is.
Where people talk like this. Get your new TV, folks. Yeah.
The transistor. Changing the future.
Cathode ray tubes. Get them now, folks. Yeah. So.
But yeah, whatever. The transistor was invented and it uses PN junctions. So of course back then I don't know if the mechanism was still the same. It's probably like a less complex, or it's probably like a more like creative way to do it. But the PN junction was this big revolution in the sense that you could make a positively charged material and a negatively charged material. So the P comes from positive and the N comes from negative. And then they can have some interplay with exchanging electrons.
Yes.
But go ahead.
And that made it much more efficient than what was previously used before.
Yeah, I guess they probably just use like an anode and a cathode or something.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah, it's probably really big. So I think the PN junction allowed it to scale down.
Exactly. And then now you're just limited by the engineering.
Yeah.
So that changed the game, because now you didn't need to power. Now you didn't need to power this thing in a level where you had to drive electrons through to sort of create this potential or whatever you wanted to do with it.
Well, I think to be fair, you still do need a bias voltage.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, yeah.
You do, but
it's very small.
It's much smaller than what was used before, and this this pretty much led the revolution. I remember reading somewhere that I think it was built in Bell Labs. I think the first right.
I'm pretty sure it was like Bardeen Cooper. You know that guy.
One of those guys.
Yeah, he got the Nobel Prize twice.
Nice.
He's the guy who did the BCS theory too.
Yeah.
He's like, I think he's one of the only guys who got Nobel Prize two times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Props to him. He I mean, I remember reading a quote where he came home one evening and like his wife I think was like, so how was work? And he was like, yeah, I think we like revolutionized the world or something like, he said something like that to the effect of that. And it was kind of so offhand and she was like, oh, cool. And then she's like, yeah. What's for dinner?
Isn't it crazy? Like how like a physicist will know just like if they just like change the game.
Yeah.
But a lot of people around them would just be like, oh, nice, okay.
Yeah.
But if you come up with something crazy, you just like, I don't know how he could even contain himself. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah, I know. You can be rich beyond your wildest dreams.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean
What he should have done was just taken that idea and made a company.
He should have.
Trillionaire.
He should have.
Patented
I mean,
the
that's
transistor.
what those guys at Intel did. That's what one of those guys. I'm pretty sure that's what one of those guys did.
I'm sure it's
there
happened
was a guy
many
in the
times.
team. I think that's the story. One of those guys that were working on that, the first transistors or something.
Okay.
They went and started Intel or something.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then, yeah.
But anyway,
maybe it was the Moore guy. Look, I should probably know all this. But
it's a lot to digest. We got too much shit on our minds.
The thing is, the history of it is not. They don't teach us history.
No.
Who has time for that? Anyway, folks. Back
on track.
Back on track here. This wasn't even scheduled. I just wanted to get into some of the physics of the technology.
Well, I definitely think we should go physics heavy.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, let's go physics heavy because I've looked on YouTube. There's a bunch of videos like engineering side and like layman friendly, but I think people here want to hear more like the physics.
Yeah.
So this is exactly what I want.
Well, that's kind of a crash course for you right there. Like, just that's pretty much the foundation of the technology. After that, it's tuning it into a way, Moore's law. We're scaling down and we're getting closer and closer to the quantum limit in a way.
Yeah, so let's explain that. So basically Moore, do you remember his first name?
I was going to say Alan.
You watch too much Watchmen.
Alan
no.
Moore. No, I'm sorry.
Not Alan Moore. The Moore's Law guy, whatever his first name is, I'll put his face on the YouTube video.
Uh-huh.
He is basically responsible for saying that essentially he made this, I think it's kind of a rough law where he was saying that computing power should double every year, I believe. Was it one? Do you remember if it was a year time
every
scale?
2 years.
Yeah, some year annual-ish time scale.
Yeah.
And his law is pretty much correct. So, I mean, that was a huge thing because then basically all computing companies just built their companies around that kind of architecture. So then computing companies were just like, we literally can just ride this wave of just making things smaller and smaller every year.
Exactly.
And everyone has a clear plan and vision. So it was kind of nice because it like unified everyone.
Yes.
We're still in Moore's Law territory, I guess. We're actually going a little bit faster than Moore's Law, I think they said lately. But of course, people are a little bit they're a little bit worried because we are getting smaller and smaller, and eventually there is a limit to Moore's Law.
Yes.
Because, the limit is of the atom.
Yes.
If you can do computations on an atom, then, I mean, I don't know, maybe there's some quantum string theory thing in the future that we can do. But that's so beyond us, like I couldn't even speculate on that.
No, the issue as you scale down, I mean, this kind of came to the forefront, I think, at the turn of the century, like early 2000s, because people were obsessed with finding a replacement, and that replacement was graphene. Graphene kind of came in the news, right?
Yeah. Because
it was a conductor and, all this other stuff, and you can easily manufacture it. It's available and all that stuff. We're still looking for a good enough candidate that can scale down like silicon and stuff like that. We still haven't found anything that's on par,
right?
To manufacture on an industrial scale. So,
yeah, graphene got a little bit more promising lately with the whole magic number, magic angles thing, which is basically they had a way where they found graphene's usually in 2-dimensional sheets, so you can just think of it like a sheet, literally like a sheet
of paper,
if you want. And they found a way to have 2 sheets laid on top of one another, and then you rotate it at a certain angle, and you can actually get a better conduction, I believe.
Changes the band structure.
Yeah. And everybody went kind of crazy for that one. So
or it affects the band structure, I should say.
So so graphene might have some more potential in the future. Who knows? It's like this potentially wonder material, but who we'll see in the future.
Right. But yeah, like we're still desperately looking for something like for a replacement, and the fact that there's certain limitations. For instance, the sort of quantum confinement limitation, meaning like you get current leakage because you're sort of if you've studied quantum mechanics, you can sort of think about it like your step potential, or your potential is getting small enough to where you get quantum tunneling.
Right. So basically, to summarize that up in a simple way, it's just you're saying that if we imagine there's an array of atoms, let's just say,
yes,
and each of those, or I'll say an array of transistors, because we're not at the level of atoms, but the transistors are so small now that quantum effects are taking a hold now in a bad way. So it's actually leaking electrons from those transistors because they're so small. Basically, in the quantum world, you have strange effects where electrons can actually tunnel through walls and barriers. Yeah. So, of course, you don't want that, because you want your electrons to be contained within the transistor, because you want to do that operation within the transistor. So when you have leaking, you're actually affecting other transistors, and you might be doing operations that you don't want to do.
Yeah, that affects your error rate and your process. Like, it throws everything out of whack. Right. So yeah, I mean, you no longer have control over your transistors or your processors or whatever. So you don't want that to happen. Yeah.
So they're coming up with clever ways to mitigate that.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And that's one of the main issues about scale. And they want to scale down. I mean, when you scale down, you get better heat efficiency and less power that you need to power the transistors. So right. Yeah. I mean, now they're down to what, 7 nanometers without, I think you're right.
It's something like that.
7
something
nanometers.
Crazy.
Yeah, 7 nanometers without having any like these, or without minimizing the quantum effects.
And that's 7 billionths of a meter. If you can even conceptualize that number, probably not.
It's nuts. It really is. And it might get better, it might not. I don't know. It's but companies do want to keep scaling down. They want to be able to pack as many transistors as they can, for sure, in a small amount of space. So cool. So yeah, I mean, and that's the state of where we're at.
With storage and with
stuff.
Processing ability and stuff.
Yeah,
and your phones use that same kind of architecture. So
exactly
with the
the processors, right?
Yeah, for the processors and for the storage.
Oh, for the for the memory.
Yeah, for memory storage. Yeah. So with the processor, it's a little bit different because most cell phones nowadays use ARM processors. Now, I will admit I didn't get to do enough research on this, so I don't want to say too much about them. But there are a couple different architectures for computing. Your CPU that you use in a computer is different than the one that you'll use in your cell phone. The ARM processor is made specifically for the computer chips in cell phones. Yeah. So cell phones, they actually have this this framework for their chips called SoC, which is System on Chip.
System on Chip, yeah.
So basically, System on Chip is just saying that they put everything on your chip. So it's got your CPU, it's got your GPU, it's got your memory, it's got your what else is there? I
mean, your audio, all that. Everything is integrated.
Yeah, it's got all this stuff integrated on one chip. Yeah. So with your PC, if you look in, if you open up your PC and see your motherboard, I'll put a picture online, Juan. Yeah.
No. I was looking at something.
Oh, okay. I thought you were trying to see if you could show something to the camera. But if you put all of that stuff, or they put all of that stuff into your chip, then you might say, like, why is it that my computer motherboard needs to be so huge? And the reasoning is because you could probably guess is because your computer's going to be a better version of that. So your processing power is going to be way better than what you'll have on your cell phone.
Right.
Of course, you might be like, well, my cell phone runs games really well on it and stuff, but that's because it's been optimized with that ARM chip. So it's under a different kind of architecture, really exploiting the perfect way to operate on your phone.
And that's kind of why you see And that's really the key here. This is kind of we're diverging a little bit, but
Sure.
Companies are able to streamline a certain product to where, integrating the chip and everything makes it so that they cannot, like Terence is saying, they can optimize the experience. And one company that's really good at this, or that's known most well for this, is Apple. They optimize the crap out of their stuff, and they use like relatively affordable hardware, but the way that they optimize things, they make it in such a way where they're able to give a consistent product and stuff like that. And I think, if you and I are both Android users by choice, I want to tell you folks, by choice.
Yeah. So this is the thing people don't realize is, there's the people who are tech savvy and like tech stuff are usually going to be like Android users. Yeah. And that's because Apple, I mean, it's great. They have a lot of optimized stuff, but if you're a tinkerer and you like to do things yourself, it's not the ideal, right? Because they have so many proprietary locks on all their stuff. Yeah. Their parts are kind of overpriced.
Right.
It's not ideal if you want to tinker with your systems.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to each their own. I know a lot of smart people that just don't even care. They're just like, whatever. I'm just gonna go with the Apple phone. But credit to them, they actually do stream. They have the best optimized phone, in terms of like experience and hardware and stuff like that. And but it's because, like Terence is saying, they integrate everything onto a chip. Mm-hmm. They manufacture everything. In the process line and everything. So
do they actually make their own chips with Apple?
Well, I think they do everything in house.
Okay.
So from like,
but do they? I wonder if they actually make the chips.
No, they contract.
Okay, I thought so.
Foxconn or something. But they
Probably
build the
Qualcomm.
architecture. Qualcomm.
Yeah.
But they build the architecture for the phone from scratch.
Everything else, they try to link up in such a way where Apple's quality is good.
So what you'll see for most like Android phones or something, or basically anything that probably isn't Apple or Samsung, they'll take parts from different companies and build a phone like that. And that's kind of tricky because then they after the fact they optimize it. They don't build the hardware or the architecture from scratch.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to be losing some things in that process. Yeah. Basically, what Juan is saying.
You're going to cut corners and stuff. Yeah. So
you're going to have to you won't be able to use this part to its fullest extent because it actually has to help some other part or something.
Yeah. You don't have full control over the way you built it. But it's I mean that's basically what most phones. That's kind of the breakdown of what the phone market looks like and stuff, or the technology market in general. That's how they kind of do things. But.
Right.
Like one thing that you didn't put on here was kind of interesting actually. Batteries.
Oh yeah, well I tried to keep it minimal because I wasn't sure how much time we'd actually have.
Okay, then don't worry about it.
But we can talk about it. Let's do it.
Well, batteries.
We can do it.
Honestly, today, if you want to talk about the technology that's going to affect smartphones, processing power. That's like my main one. Mm-hmm. And battery life.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if your smartphone could survive a week without charging.
Oh yeah.
That'd
be great. Game changer.
Yeah, because I mean, you and I both know we grew up with like flip phones.
Right.
You didn't have to charge that beast for
That's true for days. At least.
I remember
4 or 5 days.
I remember. I didn't touch my phone, my flip phone. It was like a Kyocera phone or something.
I don't even know what the hell that is.
Exists anymore. It was a Kyocera phone and probably some Korean company. I don't know. They had, and I remember losing it for like 2 weeks solid, and I found it again.
Still had charge.
Baby. It was like 20%, but it still had charge.
Snake.
It was and the reason why is because nowadays the main drawback for power is the touchscreen. The touchscreen takes a lot of real estate, right?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean the operating system is optimized enough to where you have to minimize the usage. There are apps out there that Apple's really good at this. They build it. They force the people who make the apps to optimize their apps so that it doesn't take a battery. But as Terence and I know, like most other phones, like Android and whatever, they don't necessarily enforce that. So the quality drops and whatever.
Right.
So anyway, but nonetheless, the main drawback for phones of power consumption are the screens.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So either the technology of the screens need to get better, which it has been with OLEDs.
Yep.
OLEDs for you folks out there.
Those are the ones that can bend and stuff too. So have you seen those folding phones? Those are OLED screens.
Those are OLEDs, and OLEDs are actually great, like for like saving power. Do you know?
Really?
Do you know how they work?
I know they're organic, but that's all I know.
So with OLEDs, you have this is also quantum mechanics, but like LEDs, right?
Yeah.
Maybe should we get into that?
Sure, we can do whatever, man. Let's get into the
so
physics.
Much. It's because there's so much physics and all this technology that it's
If you really, I mean, the smartphone is truly a wonder of science. Like
it really is.
It's truly a product of like you can only build this in this time period. Like it requires so much physics and engineering understanding that it's mind-blowing that the human race has gotten to this point and put all this stuff together.
Yeah.
It's like no one could have predicted this.
No.
to be. I mean, even Star Trek, which has replicators and, fast and light travel and things, could never have predicted the smartphone and its incantation. They had worse communication devices in Star Trek. It's just it's beyond our imagination.
It just shows how obsessed we are with communicating with each other.
Right. Yeah. Information.
Yeah.
We love information. This is the age of information, I think.
It 100% is. Yeah. And communication and all that. So, but yeah, it's LEDs are also another construct of quantum mechanics. And LEDs, it's an acronym for light emitting diodes. And again, diodes, very cousins to
transistors.
Yeah. So what would you say, what makes the biggest difference between a diode and a transistor? What would you say?
See, I don't know enough because it's like an engineering component. I never studied it well enough. But a diode is essentially just so a diode is a what can I call it? A component, let's say a component in like if you build circuits where you can only put current one direction.
Yes.
Or at least you're supposed to. If you put it the other direction, then you're going to fry it or I guess sometimes you can get leakage on the other side. I don't really know the details, but essentially its job is to let current go one direction.
Way, yeah. But that makes it such... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I just don't know how that is going to be distinguished from a transistor. Well, a transistor I know allows you to pass current on or off depending on if there's a bias voltage.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't really know how that would change for a diode. Maybe because diodes use... maybe not. I don't want to speak.
Well, diodes would necessarily use less. So the reason why diodes are good, like Terence is saying, it's a one-way street. That way you don't have to supply a lot of power, like a bias voltage, because if you make the junction, I guess, enough to where current it easily flows through one way. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to like the bias voltage when you.
But do diodes use quantum mechanics at all?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So maybe it is. I was thinking more of like a spin valve scenario.
Yeah.
So spin valve is another component that's used in phones.
Yes.
I'm not trying to divert too much, but it kind of is related to diode in some sense.
Okay.
Because a spin valve is, you can imagine two layers, right? So you imagine one layer of like two magnets, let's say. One magnet is hard, we'll call it a hard magnet, where it cannot change its direction.
Yes.
So it's got a magnetic field pointing up, let's say. The other magnet is a free magnet where it can switch either up or down. You can send spin current, or basically current that's polarized in a certain direction. So the magnetic moments of electrons are polarized in one direction. We've talked about that in our quantum mechanics video. If you want to check that out, go back and watch it. Yeah. But electrons are essentially tiny magnets. So when the magnets are aligned in the same direction as your hard magnet, and the free one is aligned in the same direction, then the electrons pass through freely, right?
So it's like a filter.
Yeah, it's I guess like a filter. It's maybe not a diode, but that's what I was trying to think of. Maybe the diode does something like that where it only goes one direction, but then again, I guess you could have like a spin valve on the other side where it's locked or something. I don't know though.
Well, the diodes are more efficient they construct them because they're more efficient to they require less power to use, and the structure of the engineering is necessarily, you make the diodes in a way, especially the light emitting kind, to where you will get a byproduct of light when the electrons flow one way, so you can kind of get a light emission from.
Oh, so it's actually electrons releasing light.
Well, you get photo emission, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so hard to make them like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can use organic compounds and stuff. If I remember correctly, I'm remembering back.
So is it photoluminescence?
Some of them use photoluminescence.
Okay.
Yeah. PL. Well, the acronym is PL, but yeah, it's in my old lab we used to actually synthesize photoluminescent nanoparticles, and I mean, I never made diodes, but it's sort of analogous to, I mean, you could build LEDs using this, but the idea is that these, you basically shine, you don't need a lot of energy to excite these electrons so that they can emit photons in a certain, how would you say, wavelength.
Yeah. So
yeah, and that's what makes them so popular for using on TVs, because they don't need a lot of energy to be excited photoelectrically or to emit photons or whatever of a particular wavelength. So for organic LEDs, it's a lot easier because it's you get to shut down. Actually, Javon would be able to talk about this.
Yeah, he would. He
literally worked. One of our friends, he worked exactly on a project like this.
Yeah. We need to start getting more guests who know what the fuck they're talking about at a deeper level.
But I'm running off of like memory here, and if I remember correctly, the organic LEDs are a lot more efficient at being able to have an on-off state for currents.
Okay.
Like for generating current. So
I see.
You save more power, and there's less current leaking out of the diode in a way.
Do you know why they have it so that the property of OLEDs can be bent? Because they're I just maybe answer the question myself, because they're independent from each other. Like they don't have to be in an array that's connected.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool stuff. Yeah. But yeah, it's all quantum mechanics, and you can change the. I know with diodes, at least, I don't know about like nanoparticles and stuff, but you can change how there's like channels that you can make, and that affects the size of the wavelength that's emitted. So you can tune the sort of gap in a way to where you get certain wavelengths that you want to get.
I see.
So
and the Nobel Prize was actually given like several years ago for the blue LED.
There you go.
And I guess that allows them to make RGB, and that was probably one of the last pieces to make some of this crazy technology coming up with light.
There you go, man.
Yeah, and that wasn't that far.
No.
That wasn't that long ago. Like that's like a couple of years ago or something.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was,
or maybe not a couple, but like what, 4 years ago or something? 2014?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago.
Maybe. But yeah, it's LEDs use we go to that because they use less power and energy as compared to their LCD cousins, which are liquid crystal displays or something.
Right. I remember you used to do the screen on your laptop. I used to love that as a kid.
Yeah. So LCDs, you can probably go through your laptop and do it, because a lot of laptop screens are LCDs more than likely.
No, mine aren't. Or if it is, then it's like it's got a layer of better glass or something where I can't do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, most of them have evolved, but yeah, it's LEDs use a lot more power because they have to turn, like with LEDs, you can turn individual LEDs off.
Right.
So you can save power and...
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So it saves you so much energy if you want to save battery life on your phone or whatever.
Right.
As opposed to LEDs need a backlight to give you an image. So in a lot of ways, the physics was kind of driving this innovation in a way.
Yeah.
As we were pushing the boundary along.
Yeah, apparently condensed matter physicists get shit done. So. And I'm not surprised, I got to say, because they're basically like engineering people.
Yeah. Respect.
Like condensed matter people are usually in
cutting edge.
They're in the territory of like engineer mode almost in some ways.
Yeah. I mean, we're R&D people for the most part. We're research and development kind of people. But yeah, it's but that's pretty much. So then you get you either have to do that. You have to get a new screen, get a screen that takes less energy, or use or find new battery technology. And honestly, the battery technology thing is the hardest problem right now that we haven't really been able to solve.
Right. No big strides have come from that.
Isn't that crazy?
There's been some big ones, I guess you could say, because like Tesla uses the lithium ion packs and everything now, and I mean, you can power a whole car to go 300 miles or so. So I mean, that's pretty good, but like, we want more, right?
Yeah,
we want more.
Yeah, the fundamental principle of a battery has not changed.
Yeah, there's been no like revolution of battery technology.
No. And
can we even let's try to like bullshit our way. So this is going to be a bullshit physics alert. Can we like speculate here, Juan? What do you think? Is there any way that you could see us coming up with some? Can you conceptualize some potential battery technology that might be next step if the physics pans out, or if this might seem feasible?
Okay. Well, I can only give that if I want to give the audience an idea of how batteries even work.
Sure, let's do it.
Because it's like what we have now is very simple and rudimentary. You can look up. The Egyptians actually had crude batteries.
Yeah. Works the same way.
Yeah. It's just basically you create a channel of electrons basically going from one direction to another, from positive to negative. It's just literally creating a difference in charges. Like, so we call that like an ion channel or whatever. Your body functions the same way. You have ion channels and stuff. So this is a very simple thing that we pretty much do, and we do that with batteries.
Yeah.
It's very simple. You get a material that has positively charged, carriers or whatever, and then you have another side that's negative, and then the electrons flow when you connect two.
Yep.
So
they always want to flow in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And once they flow into the other direction, you might be like, oh, why doesn't it just stop? Well, they get recombined in another section, and then those get stripped off again, and it just cycle repeats and repeats. Yep. That's also why a battery corrodes and decays, because eventually it will get bad.
So many cycles.
Yeah. It's a chemical process.
Exactly.
So it's not going to last forever.
Yeah. So when you open batteries up, you'll see that actually, it's lithium. It's like metals and it's chemicals.
Yeah.
That are in there, and they're powering through this. And you get acid. You get battery acid when you open them up and stuff, which can be corrosive. So be careful if you ever mess with batteries.
Right.
I didn't know that as a kid.
I did. I mean, I didn't, but I saw it all the time as a kid.
Yeah.
And I would mess with it. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, me too, man. I was always curious how they worked, because I was like, how do you what the hell is in this thing?
Yeah, meanwhile the battery's got all this white gunk around it, and I'm just touching it.
Yeah, it's just like salt from the corrosion and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, batteries are fascinating, but I don't know. I think maybe if we could optimize it in a way where it's hard to say. I think.
Do you think it could be optimized though? I'm not convinced it can be optimized, because I think we would have come up with that already. So I'm thinking there has to be a new architecture somehow.
People have speculated that you can. I know that there are certain you can intercalate layers, meaning you can like layer batteries to create. To make it more efficient, but I can't even fathom what else you could do. I mean, you would need to find some material with very interesting properties that could allow you to not only store a lot of energy, but have the electrons easily flow through it.
Right.
Without impeding a lot of the electrons to go from one.
Well, I guess it'd be a problem also of having enough electrons, right?
Yeah.
Because you'd have to have enough stored up, like, let's say,
That's
like
exactly
if we imagine like a container.
Yeah.
So we'd have to, so I guess, It'd have to be a way where you could pack a bunch of electrons in there somehow.
Yeah, the energy density would be huge for a battery like that. And I mean, that's why those, that's why the Tesla ones always like kind of like are so catch fire and are very sensitive because like they engineer them in a way where there's so much energy stored, chemical energy stored in them.
Right. They're very dangerous when you try to mess with them.
Super hazardous. I mean, your car battery is the same. Pretty much. They tell you not to like mess with it. If it catches fire, run away. Like that thing's gonna explode. I mean it's serious.
Yeah,
like,
true.
But yeah,
I saw just to interrupt real quick. I saw a guy who kind of builds his own Teslas, or at least he salvages Teslas.
You're talking about Rich rebuilds this guy.
Maybe he's a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a black dude with glasses.
Black dude with glasses.
Yeah. And he was messing with the battery the other day, and I was like, dude, I would not be so cavalier about drilling that battery. And, you know,
I 100% agree.
But I mean, he built the whole Tesla himself, so I really can't say much.
But
he had some balls.
I respect him. He's a really cool guy. If you're interested in if you're a tinkerer, check his YouTube channel out because he does some really cool
the
stuff.
channel again?
Rich Rebuilds.
Okay.
Yeah, he's basically there's a community of guys out there that are converting regular gas cars into electric vehicles. Basically just putting batteries in them and or how to engineer batteries in them.
He did a whole interview on Joe Rogan too, so check that one out.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I liked it.
But the battery tech has to get better, and I think as EVs get more popular and battery technology improves, there are going to be more people tackling this problem of can we find better materials? Can we engineer this in a way that's better? What are our limitations or understanding of how to store energy and stuff like that? Because like I was saying, this battery technology hasn't changed in almost 2,000, 3,000 years.
Yeah. So I think the big hurdle, we got to figure out a way to get a big energy density somehow.
Yeah.
Or maybe some clever thing. I don't know. I can't think of anything.
I can't think of anything either. Okay. This is beyond our... that's what I'm saying. I don't think that many people are very interested or care because we get by. And we get by enough with what we have.
Right.
We'd rather fine-tune these other things like improve the screen technology or whatever, or optimize the software so it doesn't take
things with more clear roads and pathways to fix.
Yeah. So you know what's funny? I always wondered how the heck the touchscreen worked.
Yeah. So that's glad you asked. So
because I always when the first touchscreens came about, it was interesting because you worked with your finger and not with like an inanimate object like a pencil or something.
For the phones, you mean? Because there were touch screens before the phones that did work with pens and things.
Yes.
But yes, very true, Juan. Yeah. So that's actually, that's really interesting.
Do you know why that is?
Yes. So the touchscreen on the phones are a special type of touchscreen called capacitive touch sensor screens. And essentially, capacitive touch sensors are reading the change in the electric field or the change in either the electric field or the magnetic field. I think it's the electric field, we'll say. Yeah, let's say the electric field. That makes more sense. So it's a change in the electric field as you get closer to the phone. So if you remember back in the days, we had those touchscreens you would see in museums or in the grocery stores. You still see them. When you try to sign your name in the grocery store, it's like really shit.
Yeah.
Because they don't use capacitive touch. They still use the old resistive touch, which basically is a force being applied onto a screen, and two screens touch and form a conducting pathway. With these capacitive touch screens, I mean, we might as well just watch the video. So I got a video actually here that will explain it. So let's just pull that up here, and it might make more sense. But essentially, I'll just give the preface of essentially what's happening is you are changing the electric field as your finger approaches the screen. And the reason an inanimate object doesn't do that is because they're non-conductive and things like that. So water does it because, water is a polarized molecule and has some issues. It makes the electric field affected. That's why your phone gives you the signal of you have water on it.
I've noticed that it does whenever I splash water on my phone screen, and it'll think I'm touching it.
And it freaks out.
Yeah, it freaks out.
Yeah.
It's kind of nuts. But anyway.
So it's got to do with the water in your finger. But
Gotcha.
anyway, let's go ahead and play the video.
So I have this video here. Let's see what we get.
Below the toughened glass is a projected capacitive touchscreen that senses the presence and location of conductive materials such as your fingertip. This touchscreen is composed of 2 transparent diamond grid patterns printed on polyester with an optically clear insulator in the middle. The diamond grid pattern is printed with a transparent material called indium tin oxide, or ITO, which acts as a conductor. Let's take a closer look on how it works. Say we build a bunch of electrons on this blue diamond. However, because there is an insulator in the way, the electrons cannot move. The electrons generate a negative electric field, which causes a bunch of positive charges to build up on the yellow diamond. This is called a capacitor. Now, when we move,
so maybe we should, they're kind of using a lot of jargon here.
Oh, you think?
I think so. Maybe let's break it down for the folks that are listening.
Sure.
So what is a capacitor?
So a capacitor is just it's kind of like a battery in a lot of ways, except it's a battery that stops. So you know how I mentioned earlier that the battery, once the electrons go through a path and they get to the other side, they continue on and then they recombine and then they get stripped off again. Yeah. With a capacitor, instead of recombining, they just stop. Yeah. And then eventually, once all the electrons go to one side, everything's fixed. Mm-hmm. So a capacitor you would see most commonly as 2 plates. So a parallel plate capacitor has a charge on one plate and then an opposite charge on the other, and you actually create a voltage between those 2 plates.
Yeah. So and in a similar manner, they say that this is what occurs here. So
when we move a conductive material such as the tip of your finger close to this capacitor, it disrupts the electric field, which changes the amount of positive charges that build up on the yellow diamond. The change in positive charges on the yellow diamond is measured, and the processor registers this as a touch. The location of the touch is detected by scanning the charges or voltage along the blue diamonds while actively measuring each yellow diamond column. Note that each row of blue diamonds is connected together. Also, each column of yellow diamonds is connected. This setup makes a grid of blue columns and yellow rows. Just to clarify again, all of these components are made with transparent materials. Measuring each point requires too much circuitry, so we only measure each column. The charge or voltage gets sent to each row in quick succession, so the processor can register multiple touches at once.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the touchscreen tech doesn't really use like too much quantum mechanics, but
nope.
It's just kind of
it's clever.
It's just clever. Because like Terence is saying, there used to be resistive touch.
Yeah. So I think the big stride with that was probably the material itself. Yeah. Because I don't remember if they mentioned it in that part of the video, but I think they did. It was indium tin oxide. Yes, so that material probably, I didn't research this, so don't quote me on this, but I imagine it was probably something that was constructed later on. Yes. And it allowed enough of a change in electric field where they could actually do it on a screen. Yeah. And the whole fact that it's invisible because it's small enough.
Yeah. So the wavelength of light of the material, this again has to do with the band properties of it. Mm-hmm. So that light could easily pass through and it doesn't
obscure your screen vision.
Which is cool. That's condensed matter, that's quantum mechanics. So yeah, I guess maybe it is quantum mechanics.
Yeah, so there's a little bit, but it's not the overall mechanism is not quantum.
Yeah. But it's cool. It's cool cool little tech thing. But yeah, I mean there's a lot packed in regular smartphone, man. Man. You get there's so many things in physics that come together. I mean, just the camera, you have to go into optics.
Oh, yeah. If you basically want to learn all of physics, just study the smartphone. I mean, literally every part of physics is utilized.
You're not kidding. You're not kidding because
I'm not.
we have to use GPS, which is relativity, to locate the phone.
Yep.
Man,
E&M is pretty much every other part of it. Quantum mechanics is all the base of everything. Yeah. Classical mechanics is just going to be some of the other in between stuff that's the normal.
Well, the accelerometer, you have to so your
Yep.
phone actually, some phones, they built them to where they can sense when they're falling.
Yeah.
And
I think most of them had that.
and shut down, or yeah,
Yeah.
shut down and like to save in case something happens. It saves the phone.
Well, I know they have accelerometers to also help out the GPS, I think, for more local accuracy. So when you have the accelerometer, you can actually tell the speed of your car more accurately because
Yes.
it kind of cross-checks your GPS location with your phone so they can say, okay, you're actually exactly here within some better precision.
That's what I'm saying. And then now they have the
So-
phones that can tell when you're in a collision. I don't know if you know this. You seen
No.
this? Yeah.
Oh, because the
phones can
accelerometer
sense-
goes crazy.
Yeah, and they're like, they call 911 right away
Shit, man.
because they sense an acceleration so
Don't
large.
throw your phone.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm sure they can discern, big
A big collision like
acceleration.
that?
Big accelerations are big. Because I imagine,
I don't know, 'cause
I imagine
people-
it measures the impulse.
Well, the thing is, people can throw phones at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah,
You can
but-
throw something at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, but think about the impulse though. Like if you throw your phone, it goes. You have to go
Oh.
like this. It's not a sort of instantaneous.
Oh, I
as-
see what you mean.
Yeah,
Okay, maybe you're right.
but that must be the technology.
What if you're on a roller coaster, though? So it's got to take that into account.
Maybe.
Roller coasters can get that.
Maybe so. I don't know, but this is technology they're building into the phones nowadays, where it takes advantage of all aspects of like our knowledge in physics and to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Learn physics by just studying the smartphone. You'll be an expert, I promise.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
But you're totally right. There's probably, because you have to know the thermodynamics to kind of understand.
Oh, a ton, because you need to learn how to take the heat off the chip and everything. The whole reason for the ARM chip was to optimize, or one of the big reasons is to optimize heat efficiency.
Yeah.
So they have all the components there. If you're running the GPU, the CPU, the memory, all of that in one location, you need to find ways to get that heat off of the chip.
Because phones don't use fans, folks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
A hot electronic like that. So
Yeah. So you're not kidding. It's the one technology that really brings in all of our knowledge together.
Yep.
Which is probably why that's what I'm saying. I really respect the amount of effort. It really is the pinnacle of our knowledge in modern society. And the fact that everyone has one is almost ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Every human on Earth. It's insane.
yeah. It is like the culmination of all physics and engineering almost,
Yeah.
it seems, in a lot of ways.
Wow.
So yeah,
Amazing.
definitely a big one.
Yeah. I don't know, but something that's been big in the news, we're always trying to get better with improving, I guess, our bandwidth, download speed. We want the information as fast as possible. That's one aspect. E&M, electricity and magnetism, that comes into like wireless technology.
Right.
You even have one thing that came in the market was wireless charging, which is kind of cool. But we don't have to get into that. We can just talk about just you need electricity and magnetism to be able to know,
When the signal's coming.
when the signal's coming in, what kind of antenna you need to use,
Right.
material properties that have to come into which antenna is good to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah. So essentially, phones use radio frequency technology just to communicate, like pretty much any other old technology, like radios. So you're literally using like the same kind of tech that you used on the old 1960s radios that you use in a cell phone. Of course, it's more advanced, but they're still using radio waves. So radio frequencies, interestingly enough.
So what makes radio frequencies useful?
So it's because I think you can generate them from electrons. So if I actually didn't realize this, Juan, just to put this out there. It's kind of like one of these things that I feel like I should have known, but I actually didn't realize it till recently. If you've ever noticed that with AC signals can only fall within a certain range. So the higher your frequency gets on an AC signal, you actually get a problem with radiation being emitted. So the electrons get so fast that essentially they start emitting EM radiation. Mm-hmm. This is the reason why you can't have super fast AC signals, let's say across the country, and you need amplifiers instead for that high energy, because it becomes so noisy that you can't actually communicate a signal. So the way they skirt around this is by making things like coaxial cables. And the coaxial cables, I know you were working on this problem a little bit recently, Juan.
Yeah.
Coaxial cables, they shield the EM radiation and allow that information to actually be the one that transfers the signal.
Yeah.
So we're used to thinking of electrons actually being the signal transferring body. But when you start to get into radio frequency territory, which is like 10,000 hertz to I think it goes to 1 trillion hertz, and that's 10 to the 7 to 10 to the 12th. When you start to get in that range, the EM signal is actually going so fast that it's generating the EM fields down the line. So radio frequency uses this same technique. So if you see an antenna, it's like a long wire. You're actually sending electrons up and down that wire of line, and then those EM waves are getting generated with that electron AC current, you could say. And those are long distance currents as well. EM waves or radio waves are pretty big, and they allow you to communicate large distances. So yeah, those are the reasons behind why we use radio frequency. It's also in a nice range where you're not hurting anyone because the frequencies are not too crazy.
Yeah. So as you folks know, higher frequencies
are more energy.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, and there's an inverse relationship between like wavelength and frequency, right?
Right.
So the radio frequencies are longer wavelength, meaning like, you know, they can pass through walls and stuff like that, which makes them much more, much better to use. So yeah, like, you know, that's why
not much is going to be affected by it unless it's tuned into that.
Exactly. Like one big thing, you know, if you enter a tunnel, and you can still hear your radio, that's because it's a longer wavelength. They can pass through that.
Right.
The barrier. So
it's only when you get in trouble when things are on the order of the same wavelength.
Exactly.
So if things are the same size as your wavelength, then you're going to get kind of messed up.
So yeah, man, it's just there's so much physics that goes into this. It's kind of mind-boggling.
It is. It's kind of overwhelming, yeah. If you think
kind of
like
is.
You're trying to recreate it yourself, you're like, there's no way you can possibly learn in a lifetime all of this stuff.
No, actually, no, not even. I couldn't. There's so much information that goes into it. In fact, I believe, I don't know who I heard this from, but they were saying that's how they think the pyramids were built.
What?
It was just everybody coming together, a lot of people coming together to build this one thing.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Maybe
but then why only
antenna.
the Egyptians?
Nah, I mean, you have like, well, I mean, that's the only thing standing today, but it might be that
there were others.
There could have very well been others, but
maybe,
but that's the only one we have today.
Yeah. Well, we have a bunch in Egypt, though.
Yeah, well, we have we have the ones in Central America or here in America.
Oh, that's true.
But
those are much smaller than Giza.
Right.
You know.
So, yeah, it's but it's still fascinating nonetheless, just how much engineering and knowledge went into like building this amount of technology. I don't know. I think, man, yeah. I mean, even the memory aspect. I mean, mostly this is a marvel of condensed matter.
Yeah.
But
there is definitely all the other physics are necessary for
a
bunch of this stuff.
Exactly.
So
if you're fascinated by technology, I mean, condensed matter is definitely like your field or area of interest. I mean, you have one more topic on here.
What was it?
And it's the data storage.
Okay, we're sitting at about an hour.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of touched data storage a little bit, but I guess I can kind of finish off with it.
Yeah, it's in case you folks, want to know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
What would you say because I feel like data storage is so, I mean, I don't know, it's I don't even know what to say about it.
Well, data storage is very interesting because it's like how do we actually save the information?
Yeah.
And with phones, of course, a phone is doing a lot of shit already, so it's kind of jam packed with a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not much room to put too much storage. So usually they'll leave 16 gigs. Maybe nowadays I'm kind of behind with my phone. I think I got 8 gig on mine. I forget.
Jesus.
It's 64 gig is the standard to have in your phone now.
I mean, it used to be much higher, but companies are now streamlining their phones so they don't allow you to have expanded memory.
Okay, yeah. It doesn't really make sense, right?
No.
Because you can have micro SDs with 128 gigs and maybe even terabyte gigabytes. Gigabits. Or gigabytes. So
so it used to be, so just for reference, it used to be that you used to have a hard disk.
Yeah.
Inside of a phone. So me and Terence are old enough to remember the iPods.
Yeah.
The thick iPods that had literally, it was a hard drive.
Yeah.
A portable hard drive, and you could hear the disc spinning. It'd be like,
and it would skip if you fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you dropped it, you pretty much
that could have ruined it.
Some songs might not play. So,
yeah.
Or you could break the disc inside of it.
Yeah.
That's very well a possibility. So
obviously, right there, you can already tell that the hard disk has too many moving parts. So that's already a major side effect, or a major, I guess, symptom that you don't want to have on your storage.
Yes.
So the memory that's used today with smartphones is called flash memory.
Mm-hmm.
So flash memory is basically just current within a little cell, you could think of it as. It's just using transistors once again. That stores current at certain values. And you might be asking, how the fuck can I get 128 gigabytes of memory storage on a micro SD, the size of less than an inch, and my computer, I have I'll have a terabyte external drive, and it's at least,
it's kind of a brick.
Yeah, it's at least a brick or something. But the thing is, the phone kind of compensates error rates and things, or it kind of, or what can I say? Not compensates, but it kind of optimizes certain features at the expense of others.
Yes.
So your smartphone micro SDs actually use flash memory has a certain way of computing information. So if you can imagine this, you have a memory cell normally that would be a 0 or a 1 state.
Mm-hmm.
So a 1 state would mean it's on and a 0 would mean it's off. With the micro SD in phones, they have 4 states. So they'll go 0, a quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, and then let's say full 1.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not 4. That's what? Is that 4 or 5? I said 0, a quarter, 2 quarters, 3, 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. That's 5 states.
Whatever.
Is
this is just
0,
a
1,
experiment.
2, 3, 4. Okay, 5 states. Yeah. So this is who said physicists can do arithmetic. But anyway, yeah. So you have those 5 states.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is you might be saying, okay, 5 states is better than 2, right? That's true, but the thing is, if you have noise, then let's say instead of if you're at a quarter, if you're between a quarter and 2 quarters, and you're at 3 quarters, the phone doesn't always, transmit information in a perfect way.
Mm-hmm.
Or save things in a perfect way. Sometimes your voltage might go higher or lower depending. And if it's in that regime, it might not know whether it's 2/4 or 1/4 voltage, and then you're going to get errors.
Yes.
So you can store more, but you might have more errors. So the phone kind of it optimizes certain things for others. So it's optimizing for the amount of space for the smallest piece, but you might get more errors and things.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that's why the lifetime of phones is not as much as, say, your desktop PC.
Right.
Your lifetime of phones is more than likely, I would say, 2 to, especially with the batteries nowadays, the batteries degrade.
Right.
And in 2 years, 2-3 years, you have to get a new one.
True. And my
but
phone's massively slowed down since, a few years ago.
The same thing with the processor. You get enough error, you get enough errors and stuff to build over time, and the processor degrades. And
yeah, and I don't even know if it's true, but I imagine that probably some of the storage and things are weaker, they have less write times and things. So you're going to have to lose on some ends.
Yeah.
The computer is the ultimate if you want to have longevity and also robustness and reliability.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, so that's how data storage works essentially, and it's just storing current. So I don't know if I mentioned that, but it's storing current in those values, and that's how you actually save data. So you'll store like a fourth of a current, and then a 2/4 of a current in one cell, and all that current will eventually mean some kind of information.
So yeah, that the software's job or whatever that reads and writes from memory, its job is to remember that address, or it builds an address, so to say, where to find that information, and it goes and looks for it.
Right.
And that's where it knows, oh, I have to read this value. And then that's where this information is stored. And it rebuilds that.
And typically you'll have like a collection of bits, which they call byte, which is 8 bits.
Yeah.
And those 8 bits will mean something. Like if you have, 1, 2, or 101, let's just go back to binary, 1001 or something. That means some letter.
Yeah.
Or some number.
A sequence of characters, they string together to mean, and then they mean something. Yeah. So,
and that's it.
Man. That fried my brain.
So I guess,
Wouldn't you say like it's kind of? It just blew my mind how much physics is actually inside of a phone.
Yeah, man, I knew it would be a lucrative topic to do, or not lucrative, but I guess mentally lucrative.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. I mean, you can go for days on this one. You can go for days, probably more than that. You can go for ever on this topic. But I guess you got a good question from one. Let's try to end it on a question.
So how long do you think how many years do you think it would take for you to build your own smartphone? Folks.
Shit.
If you had to collect all the materials yourself.
And you're talking if you don't even know physics?
Yeah.
Damn.
You think it would take you a lifetime? I hope you learn to appreciate.
Depends on how big of a team you got. Can you be Steve Jobs, basically?
No, I mean, just.
And from scratch, or do you mean they get internet help too? Because internet has all the answers now.
Let's say you were trying to build a phone before the internet.
Shit.
Millennia.
That's brutal. Brutal.
Nah. Maybe nowadays, let's say.
Yeah,
let's
at least
know
give
all
them
the information.
Internet.
Yeah.
They got access to all the information. How long would it take?
How long do you think it would take you?
All right, that's a good question.
Yeah. Because I can give you my number.
Yeah, what's your number?
I'm going to say 5 years.
Oh.
Of straight working on it.
Alone?
Probably. Alone.
Shit, Juan.
I think so.
And you have all the facilities.
And but this is me understanding the physics. I just need to learn the circuitry and get a working product and learning all the software.
And you're saying like you could piece it together because you'd already be able to get the parts.
Yeah, I already know what I'm looking for the most part.
Yeah.
Probably 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's ambitious. I don't know if I'd say 5.
No, but just pretend this is your full-time job.
Even then,
really,
I'd be a little scared.
I'm sure you could do it.
I think I could, but I'm gonna say to be safe.
It's
8.
like a PhD project.
Yeah, but I'll say 8.
8, okay.
Because I know there's gonna be a bunch of bullshit. There's gonna be so much bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this will make you appreciate how insanely important the level of technology.
Yeah.
Like an accumulation of knowledge has gone into creating a modern smartphone. So,
indeed.
Yeah.
And with that?
Yeah, with that, folks, thank you. And stay for the outro.
All right.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for making it to the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to say, once again, thank you. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And follow us on all those social media platforms that you live in.
Yes, so that's, once again, that's Eigenbros on Twitter. It's Eigenbros.com.
Yes.
Make sure to follow the Instagram, which is Eigenbros. And we also have a TikTok, which is Eigenbros2. Mm-hmm. And I believe that should be all that I can remember right now.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
And then, of course, the audio channels, which are, we're on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, TuneIn, blah, 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 everything.
Yeah. Leave us a review, too, if you like are on Apple Music and stuff, or iTunes or whatever.
Yeah, that would help.
Just, give us some good reviews. That helps a lot because that bumps us up, man. That bumps us up to
gets that
the
SEO
algorithm, bro.
Yeah,
yeah. So do that. Do that if you really care about us. Which there's a lot of you who do. There's like a core group of y'all that is cool as fuck. You know,
yeah, we love you guys.
Drop the F word in there. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it, and we'll see y'all soon.
See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
I don't know what that means, to play us out. What does that mean? To end the show? To end the show? To end the show? To end the show? To end the show?